Good day, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the APRU Sustainable Waste Management Global Lecture Series. I am Amasha Vitana, PhD scholar at Korea University, and I am going to host this event. Before starting today's event, I would like to invite Paul Park to provide some technical instructions for the webinar logistics for the attendees.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us for the 12th session of the Global Lecture Series. As Amasha mentioned, I will provide you all with some technical instructions for the webinar logistics. This is a webinar mode in which you can see the panelists and listen to the lecture. And to interact with them, it is possible to do so with the following tools. We have enabled two chats. You can ask questions to the speaker or panelists anytime through Q&A chat and the general chat. You may leave comments or share important information. If you're interested in asking questions yourself live, please raise your hand and I will unmute you to interact directly with the panelists. As this is an international event, we kindly ask you to use the English name all the time. Besides, if you have any issues during the event, please feel free to send a chat to me and I will try to help you. I hope you enjoy the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. APRU SWM Global Lecture Series is organized by the APRU SWM program, where Professor Young-Sik Ok at Korea University serves as the program director. The program is co-directed by Professor William Mitch at Stanford University and Professor David Wardley at Nanyang Technological University. Professor Yen Hwa Tong will deliver today's lecture from the National University of Singapore. The title of the lecture is Managing Waste in Megacities with Decentralized Solutions. At the end of his presentation, there will be a Q&A session. I encourage all the participants to participate in this event actively and come up with their questions for the discussion. Now, I would like to invite Paul Park to give the welcome address.
Hello, everyone again. The APRU Sustainable Waste Management Program, hosted by the Korea University, offers a timely opportunity for knowledge exchange among professionals from all over the world to assist the formulation of efficient, sustainable management of plans for biological waste and remediation of soil, water, and air in the local context, which satisfy the environmental compatibility, financial feasibility, and social needs. Professor Young-Sik Ok is the director of the APRU Sustainable Waste Management Program. APRU has the membership of the presidents of 55 leading universities from around the Pacific Rim. This includes 2 million students and 200,000 academic staff. APRU SWM Global Lecture Series is designed to provide a sound foundation and basic principles and unifying research across ecology to conservation and environmental health to waste management while paying more attention to ESG, also known as environmental, social, and governance, and global sustainability. Notably, some selected topics will be discussed through APRU SWM Global Lecture Series, focusing on the E pillar in ESG. The key topics of the APRU SWM Global Lecture Series are conservation, ecology, environmental chemistry, environmental health, environmental resource management, sustainable waste management, water science, global sustainability, and life cycle assessment. As you know, we, APRU SWM, have consistently tried to carry out a variety of programs designed to accelerate academic activities and international cooperation. APRU SWM Global Lecture Series is a part of the regular range of events offered by the APRU SWM program. It is designed to provide the audience with an inside view of cutting-edge research topics. I believe the participants will learn and interact with world-renowned scientists through this lecture series. I also hope that this event will become a valuable opportunity to extend and share friendship among those participating in the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Now we will move to the 12th lecture of the APRU SWM Global Lecture Series. Now I would like to invite Dr. Xiang-Seo Yuan from Korea University to introduce today's speaker.
Yeah, hello. It's a great honor for me to introduce our speaker, Professor Yen Hwa Tong from the National University of Singapore. Before starting this lecture, I would like to give a brief introduction about Professor Tong. Yanhua Tong is an associate professor at the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at the National University of Singapore. His research started with biomaterials based on the peptide amphiphil hydrogels for tissue engineering of the liver and brain and biomolecular delivery. His research interest and expertise are synthesizing polymeric biomaterials and surface modification, tissue engineering, molecular imprinting, bioenergy, and biologics. The major focus of his biomimetic materials and system laboratories is on applying biomimetic principles for various applications, including membranes, scaffolds, and processes. Recently, his group has expanded research into bioenergy using biomass waste and municipal solid waste, converting those into renewable fuels and chemicals. Professor Tong is currently the Assistant Dean for the research in the Faculty of Engineering at the National University of Singapore. He is also the co-program director for an National Research Foundation CREATE program with Shanghai Jiao Tong University, Energy and Environmental Sustainability Solution for the Megacities. Professor Tong, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yuan. Thank you, Masha, and also Kumunduri. Firstly, I'd like to thank Professor Opp for the kind invitation to give this lecture. It's a great honor to be able to take part in this lecture series, and it's a pleasure for me to give this talk for what we are doing. So I hope everyone will be able to enjoy the presentation, and if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask. As Dr. Yuan mentioned, my name is Yanhua. My email is here, so please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or would like to have any discussions after this. And I'd like to present about our work in waste management in megacities. And the way that we've been doing it is using decentralized solutions. So instead of collecting the waste and sending it to a central facility, we do this in a smaller scale manner. This work is part of a program called E2S2 CREATE, as mentioned. So the acronym stands for Energy and Environmental Sustainability Solutions for Megacities. So 2 E's and 2 S's. It's a collaboration between the National University of Singapore and US and Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Started in 2012, funded by the National Research Foundation of Singapore. So I have to put this page up to acknowledge the funding agency. So firstly, we'd like to thank them for funding us under this program called CREATE, which stands for Campus for Research Excellence and Technological Enterprise. The campus means to bring universities from all over the world to Singapore to set up joint laboratories with the universities in Singapore. And in this program, E2S2, the collaboration is between NUS and Shanghai Jiao Tong University. So we've been doing this for many years, and we have a lot of our program collaborators and PIs and partners and team members from both universities. I just list out some here. There are a lot more than this, but those who contributed to this work, I'd like to acknowledge them, include Professor Peng Yinghong, who is the program director of this program, and Professor Tai Yinjing, both from the Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Professor Tai is the PI for this project on waste management, together with Professor Chiwa Wang from the National University of Singapore. So they are the leaders of this project, and we are greatly appreciative of them leading us to do this work, allowing us to do a lot of research. Of course, the work cannot be done without our research fellows, researchers, research staff. So I list a number of them here, and they are the real contributors well, I'm the only one. I'm the one who only talks about what they have done, but they are the ones who did most of the work here, including Dr. Tong Huang Huan, Dr. Tian Hailin, Dr. Jonathan Lee, Dr. Zhang Le, Dr. Thomas Chui, Dr. Miao Yan, and so on. So a lot of people help to contribute to what I'm talking about today. So greatly appreciative of their contribution. So these are some of the pictures of the people in here. So I'd like to thank them all. So all the different members of our team over the past 9, almost 10 years now. So thank you for that. To start off with, what we are doing in this program, as I mentioned, is a way to manage waste in Singapore and Shanghai using decentralized methods. So our remit is to look at how to reduce the amount of waste that has to be treated and managed and disposed of or recycled in some way, so that we don't just throw them out. The overall goal is to see if we can recover some resources or energy from this, that then we reduce the actual amount that cannot be handled and has to be eventually disposed of. So to start that off, then we have to look at the statistics of waste being generated, and this is for Singapore. For 2000 to 2014, so I have some newer data after this, but just to show you that the increasing trend. So you can see the amount of waste, total amount of waste generated is this red line here at the top. So increase since the beginning of this century from 4.5 million tons per year, all the way to almost 7.5 to 8 million tons of waste per year. So it's still going up. So like I said, I'll give you the latest statistics. Now, of course, not all of these are thrown away. About 40% or 50% of it is recycled. So we have a recycling rate of half of it. So you can see the recycling rate has increased from almost 2 million tons per year to almost 1.5 million tons. So the actual amount that is disposed of is quite steady, as you can see in this gray line here. So almost 3 million tons a year. The way Singapore handles this disposal is through incineration, and we'll talk about that later on. But just to give you some more of the recent data up to the year 2018. So as you can see, the red line has been increasing up to 2014, but has stabilized after that. So from 2014 to 2018, and even now 2020 is quite stable, almost 7.5 to 8 million tons per year. The amount recycled is almost the same. Now, this chart here gives you a further breakdown of the different types of waste that are being produced. For example, the light blue line is for food waste, the gray line is for plastic waste, and then we have ash and sludge, glass, and textile and leather in different amounts. But I highlight the first two because these are the ones that are actually quite significant. You can see here, these two lines, the gray line and the blue line, has been increasing a lot from 500,000 tons to almost 800,000 tons per year. So for using the left axis here. So that's the amount that has been increasing. The challenge for these two types of waste, plastic waste and food waste, is that they are not easily recycled also. We can do some treatments, but plastic waste can be recycled, but if they are contaminated, plastic waste especially, they are not usually recycled. So you can see the recycling rate here in this table here. This is table for 2019. The food waste is here. The recycling rate is the last column. It's only 17%. Plastic is down here. So the plastic waste here, the recycling rate is actually only 4% for Singapore. This is for Singapore. So in Singapore, we don't recycle a lot of these two types of waste, and most of it gets sent to the incineration plant. Interestingly, if you look at this table in here, you can see the ordering is in terms of recycling rate. So those that are recycled in significant amounts, almost 99 or 100%, are the top few here, like construction debris, ferrous metals or non-ferrous metals. So Singapore does recycle a lot of this. We need this to be recycled and reused for new buildings, new roads, and so on. So we do collect a lot of that. And that means that you can try to recycle almost all of these different types of waste here if you put in the effort. And the effort, firstly, we believe is in sorting out the different types of waste so that they can be recycled more effectively or reused or converted to something useful. Because like in construction debris or ferrous metals, these are not usually mixed with other things like horticultural waste or paper, glass, or food, right? Those are mostly separated out. These top few here, they are disposed of separately by themselves, so you can collect them and recycle them very easily. But for food waste and plastic waste, paper, we call these municipal solid waste because all of us, we just throw them out in the same bin, and then they mix with each other this heterogeneous form, and they become very hard to recycle if you do that. So we looked at this. We studied the way that people dispose of throw out the waste, the recycling behavior, sorting behavior, and so on. And we thought that having a decentralized solution might be better to encourage people to separate and sort the waste so that we can manage them better. So that runs counter to the current ways of managing waste in most modern cities. So in most modern cities, the types of waste, the different kinds of waste that are thrown out are usually collected and sorted. So collected from residential housing, commercial businesses, and industry. So we collect them and send them to a central treatment facility like incineration plants, right? There are some sorting that can be done for recyclable materials. If you have a recycling bin, you throw those into the recycling bin and try to sort them out. So a certain amount gets recycled. In Singapore, like it's shown just now, the statistics is not for the construction waste and metals. So the statistics for the municipal solid waste that can be recycled is about 30%, 20%. So not a lot. Okay, so those recycled can be used, but those that are not recycled gets then sent to this bottom left central incineration plants. Singapore doesn't have a landfill to dispose of waste directly. We are a small island, only about 700-800 square kilometers. So you don't want to use valuable space to be as a landfill, right? So you put them in, we incinerate all of the waste to reduce the amount of waste that has to be sent to a landfill, and also recover some energy. So incineration plants are also called waste to energy plants. This gets sent, this gets, the electricity gets produced and this gets sent back to the national grid for use in the country. And the byproduct of this is the waste ash, the bottom ash that cannot be treated further. And this gets sent to a landfill offshore. So this picture here is actually the offshore island that is used to bury the bottom ash. This island is about 20 kilometers southwest to the main island of Singapore, and it's an artificial island used to be made from these bottom ash. You can see it's almost half filled with only a small part that is still to be filled. You can see it's water, so that's left to be filled. And currently, based on our production rate of this bottom ash from the total waste that we produce, that's almost like 2,000 tons per day. The landfill here, this remaining portion is estimated to be filled up by 2035. So in less than 15 years, it will be full. That's a problem for Singapore. And this problem is only really a problem because we produce so much waste and we don't sort it sufficiently well. So that the only way to manage this is to incinerate this. Incinerate it, you get this bottom ash. So we propose the different way of managing the waste that we get in Singapore. So we propose that if you can sort out the waste first, you can do different treatments. For example, food waste can be sent to anaerobic digesters, plastic waste and horticultural waste, and the dry types of waste can be sent to a gasification system so that they can be treated more effectively with lower amounts of this byproduct like ash. Or even the byproducts can be fully utilized so that you don't even send it to landfill. So the rest of this is just the different ways to recover energy or resources from the different treatment process. Okay, so just to summarize that this picture here for waste management in Singapore is that we have a very heterogeneous waste going in that has to be incinerated. This incineration process could have emissions and environmental or human effects. And because they are large centralized facilities, you also need space to build these central incineration plants. They cost a lot of money. So Singapore has 4 incineration plants right now. We're building a 5th one. The 5th one that's currently being built is costing us about 6 billion Singapore dollars and takes up about 100 hectares, so quite a lot of space. And the byproduct has to be sent to this landfill. So the ash here, some black gray, useless stuff. So we have to manage this byproduct either in the landfill or make sure there's no toxic effects from managing it. So those are the challenges that we have. And in our program E2S2 Create, we split ourselves to look at the different technologies to handle the different kinds of waste. For example, the horticultural waste and plastic waste is led, management is led by Professor Chiwa Wang, and I'm leading the group that is looking at managing the wet type of waste like food waste. So for the rest of this presentation, we'll talk about anaerobic digestion of food waste, managing food waste in this decentralized manner. Just to give you a quick overview, I won't go through the whole slide here in detail. Anaerobic digestion is a biological process where you can take organic waste, usually wet waste like food waste, yard waste, or even paper, and send it through a bioreactor that has a community of different types of microbes, including archaea and bacteria. And they work together to break down these food waste from large particles into smaller compounds, smaller chemicals, and finally it produces a biogas that comprises of methane and carbon dioxide. We can use this product of this biogas because it contains methane. We can run it through a generator to produce electricity, and the waste heat can be used for cooling, dehumidification, or even hot water. As the microbes digest the food waste, the remaining liquid is what we call this digestate. The digestate is rich in nutrients, and we will use this for fertilizer. And we can even use the remaining solid biomass, the microbes themselves, to be gasified and converted into biochar and electricity that can finally be used inside the digester itself. So this is the anaerobic digestion process in a simple form. Okay. Now, we are looking to use anaerobic digestion to manage food waste because among all of the other possible methods like composting, aerobic digestion, and so on, anaerobic digestion lies higher in the pyramid for waste management because it recovers both energy and resources. Compared to like composting, you can only recover the fertilizer as materials, you don't recover energy. Or aerobic digestion actually doesn't recover anything, it just converts food waste into water and carbon dioxide. So we thought anaerobic digestion or ED would be better in that sense. It's more sustainable. Now, just to elaborate again, for food waste in Singapore, we currently produce in 2017, 2018, the amount has been quite constant, about 800,000 tons of food waste every year. And only 10%, only 16% of it gets recycled, 20%. This amounts to about 10% of all of the waste in Singapore, which is quite a lot. The waste all currently get sent to incineration plants. Some of it, there are trials now looking at composting and smaller scale systems to treat them, but not to a large amount. So that contributes to this 16% recycling rate. Singapore is also building a central large-scale anaerobic digestion facility in the same place that we are building. We are building the incineration plant. So it's these very big digesters here to handle the food waste. But it only can handle about 400 tons per day. So like 200-300 tons per year. Not a lot. Still like 20% of total amount that's generated for a central facility. So we are looking at then building smaller scale anaerobic digestion systems to be deployed on site to minimize the need for collection to this central facility, and there are still a lot of waste that can be used. Of course, doing anaerobic digestion is not so easy for food waste because AD is slow. It's a slower process compared to aerobic digestion, for example, or even incineration. And there are challenges like product inhibition, slow startup, and it's quite sensitive to environmental changes. But critically for Singapore, it requires a bit more space. So the volume for the reactors are more than that for other methods of treatment. Okay, so just to put it all into a picture for us in Singapore then, what we call this project is closing the food waste loop through this decentralized anaerobic digestion ecosystem, is that this is what we are doing in here, in this picture in here. We take the food waste from different sources and treat them on site. So we have this system here that first will sort out the non-food waste from the food waste and then send them to these small scale anaerobic digesters. So we have deployed them in Singapore and in Shanghai, and where they are working now at pilot level. We also do remove the odor so that these systems don't smell, right? You know, food waste, throw them away, they tend to smell. So we have to make sure if you want to put them where people are eating their food, it has to be odorless. Then we use machine learning to enhance the performance of the anaerobic digesters, and then produce more biogas, reduce the time needed for digestion, generate more electricity that can be used on site, and the byproduct of the digestate, we then use it as fertilizers for different treatments. Now, I'll quickly go through two aspects of this entire scheme here. First aspect is what we call the life cycle analysis, because if we're going to propose a decentralized solution using anaerobic digestion, is it really more environmental sustainable than the current centralized incineration process? Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing we're going to talk about is the actual test bedding. So to show that this has been working, we've been doing this in real food court hawker center system for the past half a year, and we'll just show you some data out from there. Now, the life cycle analysis starts off usually by looking at the system that you want to analyze, or assess. So in this case, it's food waste management, where we take the waste, collect it, treat it, and use the product. Okay, there are of course a lot of inputs and data that you need to collect. So all these things have to be considered within the system. So collect the system, look at as much as you can, look at all the different cost, environmental cost perspectives that we have, with the goal of solving the food waste problem. So define the goal, define the scope, and in this case, we will be doing the comparisons with the current incineration process. Okay, so for food waste, if we do incineration, that's the status quo. The second consideration is monodigestion. So the second scenario is we just do anaerobic digestion of the food waste itself, but we then take the digestate and incinerate this, which is what Singapore is doing right, that's building right now in the next generation waste treatment facility that has incinerator and the food digester together. So that's the two scenarios you're going to compare with. And the third scenario is the decentralized systems, smaller scale solutions, and also co-digestion, the fourth scenario, co-digestion with sewage waste. So we define the scope and then we do a gather data through inventory analysis. This is what we have done at two food courts in the western part of Singapore. So these locations here, not very big food courts, they're quite small. What we do is we collect the food waste that's produced from there and then we characterize them for as much information as we can so that we know what's going in. For example, we collect what the diners have eaten or have left over, not finished. So we call these table waste. And then we also collect what the cooks, as they cook, they throw away what is not used. So this is what we call the kitchen waste. Sorry. So the kitchen waste and the table waste, you can see are quite different. You know, this cooked food versus uncooked food. Those are being prepared. You can also see there are a lot of things other than food waste in this waste here. So they are like, you know, plastic bottles, plastic utensils, dishes, plastic dishes for the sauces, metal cans, plastic bags, you know, and so on. So the problem with food waste is that people throw in a lot of other things in there. Well, chicken eggs also, you have bones, you have coconut shells sometimes, you know, for sugarcane, bagasse, and all those things. So we characterize all of this, what can be treated with digestion and what cannot be treated by digestion. So we characterize this, look at the detailed information like organic fraction, total solids, volatile solids, even go down to a level of like carbohydrate, protein, lipids, and so on. But the important part is we do biochemical methane potential study to look at how much methane that can be generated. So you can see here the table waste produces more methane, the kitchen waste produces less correspondingly, and the lower heating value of these table waste and kitchen waste. So we collected all these data so that we can put it into the LCA analysis. Then we define the system boundary for all the scenarios, incineration, AD plus incineration, and so on. So we define the system and key in all the data into a software. We have been using Gabby. So Gabby will have some parameters already input when we key in what we found, and use this based on 1,000 per day, 1,000 tons per year iterate. Okay, using the food court as our source. So, so you can see the incineration scenario is here, the first column. The second column is the digestion in three different parts. So the AD, the digestion by itself, the rejects, which is basically the digestate, which is then sent to the incineration plant, the last column in here. So the emissions, go back. The emissions here can be seen here. You can calculate the emissions from the Gabby data, electricity productions, and so on. So again, all these are what we key into the life cycle assessment. And what we then get is the output of this, which is an impact assessment. So impact assessment is in many impact categories, ranging from abiotic depletion to acidification, eutrophication, to global warming potential, ozone layer depletion, and so on. So it gives a lot of different potential impacts on the environment. And the number that it gives us for these two scenarios, incineration versus AD plus incineration, are given in the last two columns here in this table. And the lower the number or the more negative it is, then the lesser impact it has. Or if it's negative, that actually contributes to reducing the impact, right? So summarizing here, so if you do anaerobic digestion plus incineration, there are it's better compared to incineration in certain categories. So those that are highlighted in this grayed out cells. And incineration does have some advantages in these grayed out cells in here. For example, like acidification, eutrophication. But this mainly relates to the incineration comparison versus AD here, because in this AD scenario, we are not using the digestate for fertilizer. We are taking the digestate and incinerating it, and that produces still some nutrients that are not recovered, and those has to be disposed of. So nitrates, phosphates, and so on, those are the ones that will cause acidification and eutrophication, ozone layer depletion, and so on. So those are the drawbacks if we do AD plus incineration. And that is what Singapore is going towards right now, because like I said, our new waste treatment facility combines incineration with food waste AD that co-digests food waste with sewage waste. So the digestate has to be incinerated. Okay. So the assessment shows that AD with incineration, even so, has some benefits. So it's better than incineration by itself. But just to delve deeper into two categories here, if you want to, let's just look at one category, acidification. The AD plus incineration total contribution is worse than incineration, because if you look at all of the calculations in here, you can see here this acidification, incineration is better, right? So it's because of contributions, mainly due to the biogas engine, like I said. So if you use the biogas, you burn it. In a small biogas engine, it's not very efficient compared to incineration, which gets electricity from heat itself. So this biogas engine, if it's not removing most of these nitrates and sulfates, SOx and NOx, then you get the acidification potential. So what we can draw from this is that the life cycle analysis is interesting and gives us some assessment, but you really have to look into detail for each part to see, okay, what are the causes of these potential problems and why? And is it really something that causes the AD scenario to be worse than the incineration scenario? And we have done I didn't show the data in here for the decentralized solution, but the decentralized solution, if we use the digestate for fertilizer, then we actually reduce all of the negative impacts from the AD plus incineration scenario that has been shown here. So this conclusion slide for the life cycle analysis is mainly only for the two scenarios we compared with. But this work has been published in a publication in Applied Energy, the journal. So with the decentralized solution, so you can see the full detail in there. But I just wanted to point this out to tell you that the decentralized solution with AD is actually much more effective. Right. So the last part I want to talk about is this actual decentralized solution that we have deployed in a case study that we've been doing in what is known in Singapore as this East Coast Lagoon Food Village. So this hawker center here, you can see in the bottom right-hand picture here, is a very popular tourist place. East Coast Park is in the east coast of Singapore, of course. It's quite near to the airport. So if you come to Singapore, you land in Changi Airport and you drive to the city, then the first thing you will see on the left is this East Coast Park there. And you drive by, you see this hawker center there. It's very popular with tourists and also Singaporeans who would go there on weekends. It's a nice park to cycle, to bike, and to eat. So they go to this food court, food village here for different types of food: Indian food, Chinese food, Malay food. But it's known for seafood, satay, barbecue, and sugarcane and coconut drinks. So if you come by, do let me know. We can bring you there for the food and show you our digester there. So the scenario in here is, as we explained, so for Singapore, we are currently doing incineration for all the food waste, and the food waste amount is shown in this table here up to 2019 again. The 4 incineration plants are shown in this star in this picture. So Singapore map on the right hand side here, the stars showing 4 incineration plants, 1 in the north, 3 in the west. So 2 of the stars overlap next to each other. The 5th plant is that's being built right now is further to the south of that. So and the different red dots you can see on the map here, they are basically the more concentrated sites of hawker centers. So where you have a lot of these places like the East Coast Lagoon Food Village. Okay, so the East Coast Lagoon Food Village is not one of the bigger hawker centers, even though it's quite popular. There are hawker centers that are much larger, 3 times the size. In terms of food waste generation also, East Coast Lagoon Food Village produces about 200 to 300 kilograms of food waste per day. The biggest hawker center in Singapore produces almost 1 ton, 1.5 tons of food waste per day. So we have the layout of this hawker center shown here, and the different stalls. You can see some of these hawker stalls here. On the picture on the bottom right hand side, the stalls are surrounding where people are sitting in the middle. So you can enjoy something almost outdoors with the sea right next to it. So yeah, the sea is only to the left hand side of this map here. So you can see almost the sea here. The view is not very good. Well, all you can, even though the sea is there, you will see a lot of container ships. Singapore has a lot of ships coming. So what we did was we built this pilot scale digester to handle all of that 200 to 300 kilograms of food waste in this East Coast Lagoon Food Village. The food waste will be collected from this hawker center, sorted out to remove the contaminants like plastic bags and the utensils and plates. The food waste are blended into a slurry and sent to a feeding tank that regulates the amount of the waste that's being pumped into the digester itself. So the digester that we built is almost 4 cubic meters, so quite big digesters. So we run these digesters currently in the normal mesophilic conditions, but we can run this at thermophilic conditions, which we'll do later on. But right now it's running at 35 degrees. So the biogas that's produced will be collected and purified first, then stored in the storage tank. Once the pressure is sufficient, we'll run a 7 kilowatt generator, the biogas engine, to produce the electricity that is used in this hawker center itself. Then we use the electricity to power 31 fans and 2 mobile phone chargers in the hawker center. You might ask why only 31 fans? Well, this is because it's only 200 kilograms of food waste. It's not a lot. So the electricity produced is not a lot, maybe like 20 to 30 kilowatt hours. The product, another product coming out from this is digestate, liquid digestate. We store that in a storage tank, and subsequently we'll take it and use it to fertilize the plants in East Coast Park. So the park is very big, so there are a lot of plants, vegetation there that we are testing for fertilizers. The amount of food waste that we will be collecting, we actually did a detailed audit earlier, before COVID. So when we had the COVID pandemic, all of this changed. But before COVID, we found that the figure here shows from the weekends in the middle here, Saturdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, to the weekdays, the amount of food waste is not constant. So in the food waste on the weekends are higher, so here, higher here. On the weekdays is correspondingly lower, which is not surprising because weekdays, not too many people go to the park. Weekends, Singaporeans will go to the park, even tourists will go to the park. So we get more waste, and the percentage of digestible waste is lower. yeah, we found that the digestible waste percentage out of the total waste generated is not that high. It's only about 7% at the most. So the hawker center itself produces almost 2 tons of food waste, 2 tons of total waste per day. We sort out 150 to 300 kilograms of food waste out of that. So based on that data, we designed and fabricated this digester using the schematic that I've shown earlier, and we put them into 2 containers, as you can see in the bottom left picture here. So these 20-foot containers, they're painted beige here. Yeah, we put the digesters in there, the gas engine, the gas storage tank, all of the system is in there, even the sorter. And there's a control panel here that automates the running and operation of the system. It's quite easy to run. All you have to do is take the food waste in these standard, the red bins here, you can see 240 liter bins. Collect the food waste from the hawker center, wheel it to the loading system here, and it will load it into the sorter. So that's the sorter here on the top right hand picture. Here sorts out the non-food waste, which goes to this bin here, we'll throw it out to the bin center, and the food waste gets pumped into the storage tank. Sorry. So the storage tank is shown in the bottom right hand picture here, and then the gas storage tank is the left tank here. And the 2 main digesters can be seen in a separate 20-foot container. So again, the layout of the food court, the hawker center. So we collect the food waste and then have to transport it a short distance to the bin center here. So the pictures here shows the location of this, where we place the digester. So we took the site here. It was actually a green field, and we placed the 2 containers that you can see from on this field here after covering it with concrete. So you can see the fabricated system here again, and with the control panel shown here. And we've been running this for almost for 6 months now, half a year. Yeah. So we're trying it at different temperatures, different loadings, and so on. So the blue line here is the biogas production. The orange line is how much food waste we put in. The red line is the total waste that's collected, not sorted. And we didn't put in food waste all the time. We had some stoppages and other things because while we were running this, Singapore went through the restrictions due to the pandemic. So the hawker center had to be closed for a period of time. So during this period, the hawker center was closed through week 9 to week 13, and then another period here we had the dining out in a restricted manner and so on. So it's only recently, in the last few weeks here, that we have been collecting food waste and putting more in. So the numbers that we put is that we have treated 3,000 kilograms so far. The biogas production is 350 cubic meters. So the biogas yield can be shown at the bottom from the food waste here. We characterize a lot of the details. So as you can see, we look at the digestate, look at the digestion process, the pH, buffer capacity, total volatile fatty acids, and measure it over this period of time. So to try to maintain, try to see what's going on. But this is a real life operation, so the changes are due to, again, the changes in the amount of food waste we feed in, the restriction periods, and so on. So the performance is that we can show here we actually measure how much energy is being consumed, how much energy is being generated. So at this stage, we are consuming more electricity than we are producing because we're not running at full capacity. We are only loading it at 30 kilograms per day rather than at the initial estimate of 300 kilograms, only 1/10 of the capacity. The reason like is, as we said, so we are still in a restriction period where dining out is limited. So we're not getting a lot of food waste and we're slowly ramping it up. So the restrictions only have been lifted the past month and a half, but we have some downtime with the system. We're collecting the data and we are getting it. But we, based on the data that we've shown, we have gathered, if we can treat the full capacity, about 150 to 200 kilograms of food waste per day, we will get enough electricity to be more than self-sufficient to run the system and also supply electricity to have access to supply to the hawker center for the fans. But there are different considerations also, like the efficiency of the biogas engine. So we're looking to get a better biogas engine because we found that our current generator is only 10% efficient, which is very bad. So we'll get a better one. And to talk about the digestate to be used as fertilizers, we haven't really used it in the actual vegetation in the East Coast Park itself. We tested this in the nursery back in the university to grow different types of plants. So we actually shown that it is suitable to be used for these two different species, Piper sarmentosum and Stachyphyta jamaicensis. So these two are common shrubs that are found in the East Coast Park. So we tested this with the shrubs and found that the digestate actually is comparable to compost and chemical fertilizer. So you can see all these are actually at the bottom here. After 60 days of application, they don't show significant difference. So they're comparable to what the park managers are using. So we can replace the chemical fertilizers or even compost with this digestate. So there are a lot of data in here, so I won't go through all of them, just to highlight that the pH caused by the digestate is not significantly different from when if you use the compost or fertilizer, chemical fertilizer. So they're within the same range, within the suitable range of 7 to 8. And the soil electrical conductivity is also within the range. So using the digestate fertilizer has not affected the conductivity. So it's non-saline. So the ornamental plants, we look at the dry cell weight, the plant height, the chlorophyll content, and so on. Basically, what these data here shows that the use of the digestate is comparable to the fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, and compost. Right. So I will finish here with also using the digestate to grow vegetables. So these are vegetables, not shrubs. So we use this to grow the xiaobaicai. So this shows that you can get very healthy vegetables using the digestate also. So comparable to chemical fertilizers. So just to summarize up, in this, what we are doing here to manage food waste in a decentralized manner, we actually can do so. Even though managing the food waste is only one part of all of the solid waste in Singapore, but the idea is to manage it in a mixed or hybrid fashion. But we will need sorting. We want to sort out the food waste so that we can manage it. We sort out the plastic waste so that we can manage it, and we can manage this on site. So there are a lot of issues that have to be addressed, and we talk about some of them, like smell, like electricity generation, and so on. Even safety is something that we have learned to address, and we need to test bed it to really know and understand all the issues that needs to be addressed. Right. So yeah, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Tong, for your excellent presentation. Yeah, as you mentioned, the solid waste management, especially for the food waste treatment, has been attracted more and more attention currently, not only in Singapore but also like in Korea, and also like in Hong Kong. We had a lot of discussion for this period for this issue. Now we will start to have a Q&A session. During this session, please kindly send your question through the chat function, or you can raise your hand to talk with Professor Tong directly. Up to now, we received many questions for Professor Tong. So for the first one is from Professor Qinghua Wang. I think Professor Wang is still here, so Amasha, could you promote Professor Wang as a panelist?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
I can answer his question here. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, his question is, would you please comment on the sensitivity of suitable food waste treatment systems with references to significant climate and diet variations, for instance, Singapore and Korea, and even China? So very good question. We have, that's why I started off, I said that we have done this in Singapore and also in China to get to get data from different climates, different countries that have different diets or different types of food waste, I would say. So there are, the other thing that we also have to consider is different societal norms. So like in Singapore, we are used to not recycling food waste. We don't sort our waste very effectively, and we don't we are not good recyclers. So compared to some other countries like Korea, for example. So the food waste, like I said, to handle it properly, we believe you need to sort it out, remove all the contaminants, the plastic waste, and so on. So that will greatly affect the effectiveness of these treatment systems, especially AD, anaerobic digestion, and especially on a decentralized place. So one example that we found from our data is that in our comparison between Singapore and Shanghai, in Singapore, as I said, our population doesn't sort and recycle, so our efficiency in getting good food waste has been lower, and we are producing less biogas for that reason. We can't get proper food waste as effectively compared to our test bed in Shanghai. So in Shanghai, the food waste going in actually has been well sorted. So almost 95% pure food waste. So for that, the biogas output for that system is almost double of what we are getting in the East Coast Lagoon Food Village. So that's one example of societal norms. Climate, we haven't really studied. We are getting the data, so we've been operating the Shanghai one with different climates. It's a temperate country, so it's going through winter right now. In Singapore, we are constant at the very hot temperatures. So we're getting the data, and we're trying to see if that climate would have a big effect. But so far, the variations in the diet, the food types of food waste, the diet has not been so significant. Yeah. So that's what we have found.
Yes, thank you, Professor Tung. I hope Professor Wang get your points here. Yeah.
Sure.
So let's move to the next question is from Jingxin Zhang. I think during your slide presentation, you have mentioned about it. So I will just read out. Thanks, Professor Tung, for the nice presentation. May I have one question? How does the COVID-19 affect the solid waste management in Singapore?
Yeah, I'm not just in Singapore. I'm sure it has affected the solid waste management all over the world. In Singapore, I can comment specifically for food waste because we are looking at food waste production on site. So during that period where we have different kinds of restriction, the food waste that's being generated by those eateries, the hawker centers, the food courts, have reduced significantly. The business has gone down, and a lot of these eateries went for delivery rather than eating. So the amount of food waste there has reduced. Conversely, what happens is then the food waste has been transferred from these commercial sites to residential sites. People eat at home, they do take out or delivery, and then they dispose of that at home. So the balance of where we are getting the food waste have shifted from the restaurants, hawker centers to residents. The other effect is that because of this delivery and takeout, the food waste has become more mixed. It goes with a lot of the plastic containers, plastic bags that you have with the delivery and takeout. So the amount of these kinds of waste, the plastic waste and paper waste, have increased a lot during this period. I don't have the actual data. This is what I've been told by our National Environment Agency. I'm sure that that has happened all over the world too. So the increase in the plastic and paper waste due to food delivery and takeout, or even delivery of products that we order online. Yeah. So those are the major effects on the solid waste management.
Yep, thank you, Professor. And let's move to the next question is by Jie Li, I think from NUS. Dear Professor Tong, excellent presentation. As we know, the feedstock composition and the optional conditions have impact on the AD performance. So could you please explain how should we consider these factors in the LCA?
Yeah. So in the LCA, the feedstock directly affects the input parameters that we use. So like that's why the first thing we always do is we characterize the waste that we get. So if we have different types of waste or different diets, different compositions, then we would have different parameters that we key into the LCA, the volatile solids, the total solids, the different water content, and so on. So that has a very important effect. For operational condition though, that affects mainly the output. So different ways of operating affects the yield of biogas, the digestate production, the purity of the biogas, and so on. So that affects the output, and the output will affect the LCA impact more. So it has the effect there, but because there are too many different types of operational conditions, usually you would only choose one that you have as the parameter. So you using what you are running rather than what the literature has, because you are doing LCA on your system. But unless you're doing a life cycle assessment on some generic system, then you might want to average the operational parameters for different kinds and get an average output. That would be how we would look at these two factors in the LCA.
Thank you, Professor. I will read out one more question on LCA from Asma Lahari. Professor Tong, nice presentation. I have one question about LCA. Why do we always have to assume things? I mean, can we use the real data? Because I just reviewed a paper about the challenges of LCA focusing on thermochemical processes. And it was mentioned that the major problem with LCA is the researchers don't use that much real data and they don't consider uncertainty analysis. Would you please explain?
Yeah, that's exactly the challenge with LCA is the amount of data that you would need, because the LCA has to consider all of the input parameters and all of the output parameters and operational conditions, right? So you might not have all of it. You say, just for example, the AD or incineration case, like for us, to get the data for incineration, we need to know actual operating conditions, like what Li asked just now. Well, if the operating conditions change, that would affect the output. So then the operating conditions for the incinerator, there are many parameters, not just temperature, not just the residence time, but the scrubber condition of the scrubbers that they use, or what are the flow rates of the gas, input gas, output gas, and so on. So the question is, as you say, do we have those data? If we can get those data, of course we will use the real data. But for us as researchers, we might not have some of these data because the operators of these facilities might not be willing to give us that data. So you might have to make assumptions, or you look up in literature on what you can get. So the answer to that question is that, what is the ability for us to get those data from different operations? Would the people who are running it be willing to give us those data?
Yep, thank you. And we have one question from Dr. Manish Kumar. So, dear Professor Tong, thank you so much for your excellent talk. Could you please explain us what approaches you have been taken to control the gases emission from the waste incineration process, which is considered as the major problem of the incineration? And also, he didn't find the composting approach in your presentation, so which is considered as the greener approach, similar to the AD for the management of organic fractions of municipal solid waste.
Yeah, that is the one thing that we didn't do. Actually, two things we didn't do. For the incineration process, this is not something that we do. The incineration is currently being operated in Singapore. There are 4 of those plants, and they are run by the private companies. They do have very good gas emissions control, so a lot of scrubbers that will remove the toxins and also particles and NOx and SOx. So what approaches they are using, I don't know the exact detail, but I know they do a lot of filtration to remove the particles. So back filtration, for example, that's usually towards the end. They use liquid stripping columns to remove the NOx and SOx, and also for toxins, they would use some other filters like activated carbon filters. I don't know the details. So if you ask me about the operating, like the detailed scrubbers that they are using to control these emissions, I don't know. Yeah. As for composting, we didn't do composting ourselves. As I explained, we considered AD because in the hierarchy of waste management for food waste, AD lies above composting in terms of sustainability, because AD recovers both energy and fertilizer, while composting is only recovering the material, fertilizer. And below that is aerobic digestion, which doesn't recover any material at all. And further below that is incineration, and the bottom one is landfill. So there's this hierarchy, the inverted table of inverted pyramid that is commonly used to look at sustainability, right? So we are not saying that composting is not suitable or not being used. A lot of people do use it. The pros of composting is that it is cheaper. It is safer it takes up smaller footprint, and it will produce compost that can be used as fertilizer. But we considered AD because we also want to recover energy and move higher up in the sustainability chart.
Yes, thank you, Professor Tong. Due to the time limitation, we will have only one more question for you, and I will read out. Dear Professor Tong, thank you so much for your excellent presentation. Can you please provide your opinion on quality of fruit or vegetables when they are grown with municipal solid waste amendment soil, as they contain a significant amount of contaminant?
Yeah, that is correct. If you are using a mix of municipal solid waste, whatever vegetation that you grow on them, they will absorb any or whatever things that are being leached out from the soil. So if the municipal solid waste is really mixed, so you have plastic, paper, metals, and other things in it that could leach out any materials, then the plants would absorb them, and I won't be eating them, that's for sure. Yeah, maybe the plants themselves might not be so healthy. That is very well known. That is mainly like what we call phytoremediation. You actually use the plants to absorb these leachates and contaminants to make the soil cleaner. But for what we are doing, if we are just looking at food waste, treating food waste, then it's much safer, because food waste is what we throw out after we eat it, right? So theoretically, there shouldn't be any of those contaminants or even pathogens in there. It's what we eat. So if you then use that to grow or treat it, and then use compost of digestate to grow vegetables, they should be safer, because in that circle there are none of those potentially toxic contaminants.
Thank you, Professor Tung, for your excellent presentation and detailed explanation. So due to the limitation, I will close this Q&A session. And now over to you, Amasha.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Yuan. So thank you, everyone. So this is the end of the 12th session of the APRU SWM Global Lecture Series. So I would like to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to Professor Tong for your valuable contribution and for sharing your knowledge with us with your busy schedule. And also I would like to extend my special thanks to Professor Yong Sik Ok for organizing this event. And thank you very much, Dr. Yuan, for your time and excellent coordination in handling a question and Q&A session. And thank you very much for all the panelists, the program leader, and all the participants for attending for this event and bringing your expertise to this gathering. Thank you once again, and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Masha.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Good day, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Tung. Bye.
Bye bye.